Have you ever thought about like how the computers we use every single day
Yeah.
have roots going all the way back to the 1800s?
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible how far back these concepts actually go. And, today we're going to dive into the life of Charles Babbage. But this isn't just going to be, like a boring history lecture about the father of the computer. We're going to be using excerpts from a biography to really try to get to know Babbage, the person. His passions, his quirks, his struggles, all the things that make his story
Right.
relevant even now.
You know what's so fascinating about Babbage is that even his birth date is kind of a mystery.
Really?
Some sources say 1791, others 1792. It seems like history itself needs some debugging.
Yeah, like historical records can have their own glitches too. But what we do know is that his early life wasn't exactly a smooth ride.
No, not at all. He had to deal with some health challenges when he was just a kid, and that really disrupted his formal schooling. So he ended up with private tutors and developed a love of mathematics. And this love of mathematics was nurtured by a well-stocked library at his academy.
It's amazing to think about a young Babbage just poring over those books.
Yeah.
But even with his self-driven learning, his path wasn't exactly typical. He goes to Cambridge, this brilliant mind, and he finds himself frustrated with the way math is being taught there.
Yeah, he wasn't content with just accepting the way things were. So he forms the Analytical Society with some of his friends. And one of these friends was John Herschel. It was this group of, young intellectuals who were really pushing for a more rigorous and analytical approach to mathematics.
So they were basically like rebels in academia.
Yeah, exactly. They were shaking things up.
And then get this, Babbage graduates without honors because of a controversial thesis. It really makes you wonder how many brilliant minds throughout history have been kind of held back by these rigid systems.
That's such an important question to think about. And it seems like this tension between Babbage's genius and this struggle for recognition. It's a recurring theme throughout his life. He had this sharp mind, but he never quite fit into a traditional career path.
Yeah, it's like he was meant to carve his own path.
Yeah.
But he was definitely driven by this insatiable curiosity. And it wasn't just limited to math either. He was also a founding member of the Royal Astronomical Society, which really highlights his passion for making these scientific calculations much more accurate.
It's like he was obsessed with eliminating human error.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was all about efficiency and precision. And this desire to improve things went beyond just the realm of science. He even wrote a book called On the Economy of Machinery and Manufactures. And what's really interesting is how relevant this book is even today. He actually suggested these ideas like profit sharing, where workers would get a share of the company's success.
It's incredible that some of these concepts that we consider modern were already on his mind back then. He had this amazing foresight to see the connections between technology, human labor, and economics.
Yeah, it really shows how ahead of his time he was. But it's important to remember that Babbage wasn't just some, abstract intellect. He was a man of strong opinions, a real personality.
Oh, he definitely was. And he wasn't afraid to let people know what he thought. His campaigns against what he considered public nuisances are pretty legendary. Like he had these strong feelings about things like street music and those kids who used to roll hoops down the street.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when you think about it.
Right. It really humanizes him, don't you think?
It does. It shows that he wasn't just this detached genius, but someone who was really engaged with the world around him, observing, analyzing, and always trying to find ways to improve things. And this drive to make things better is what ultimately leads him to his groundbreaking work on computing.
Okay, so before we jump into the birth of computing, let's set the scene. Back in Babbage's time, complex calculations were actually done by humans.
They were called computers.
Wow.
Literally rows of people hunched over their desks, painstakingly performing calculations by hand. It was a tedious process and so prone to errors.
And Babbage, being the efficiency enthusiast that he was, saw a much better way. And this is where the difference engine comes in.
Now, the difference engine was designed to tackle a specific type of math problem, polynomial functions. They might sound a bit intimidating, but they're actually used all over the place in science and engineering. Think of anything that involves curves or rates of change, calculating trajectories, predicting astronomical events, even understanding population growth. Before Babbage, working with these equations by hand was a nightmare.
So he basically found a shortcut, this mathematical trick called finite differences, that breaks down these complex equations into simpler steps. that can be done mechanically. It's like he found a way to automate complex math itself.
That's exactly it. And that's the beauty of the difference engine. It takes this, abstract mathematical idea and makes it tangible. A physical machine with gears and levers doing what used to take humans hours to do.
I'm seeing a pattern here. First, it's all about accuracy, and then it's all about efficiency. So is this like a stepping stone to the analytical engine?
It definitely seems that way. The difference engine was innovative for sure, but it was still really designed for a specific purpose. The analytical engine, though, that takes things to a whole new level. This is where we start to see the real foreshadowing of modern computers.
This is where things start to get really mind-blowing. It's not just a fancy calculator anymore. The analytical engine was designed to be programmable, using punch cards like those used in the Jacquard loom to perform any calculation.
Exactly. The implications of that are huge. We're not limited to just one task anymore. In theory, with the right instructions, the analytical engine could solve an endless variety of problems.
It's like leaping from a simple abacus straight to a modern computer.
Yeah.
But how did it actually work? I mean, was it even possible to create something like that back then?
That's the remarkable part. Babbage's designs were so intricate, and as far as we can tell, they were sound. He imagined a machine with separate units for data storage, processing, and output, all controlled by punch cards that would tell it what to do.
So it's almost like he was laying out the blueprint for modern computers, like separate components like our hard drives, processors, and monitors, all working together based on instructions from software.
Exactly. And these punch cards, just like modern software, could contain instructions for loops, conditional statements, all those logical building blocks that give a computer its flexibility.
So it's like he was writing the first computer programs,
Right.
even though he didn't have like the terminology or the electronics that we use today. And that's where Ada Lovelace enters the picture. Right? Yeah. She's often credited as like the first computer programmer.
Yeah.
Because she was developing algorithms for this hypothetical machine.
That's right. Ada Lovelace really saw the potential of the analytical engine as being more than just a number cruncher. She imagined it as this tool that could be used to manipulate symbols and even express these complex ideas. And her work really laid the foundation for what we now call computer science.
It's mind-boggling to think that these concepts were already being explored way back then. Well, here's the big question. Why didn't Babbage ever actually finish building these machines? I mean, he had the vision, the designs, the passion. So what went wrong?
Well, building something this complex in the 1800s came with a lot of challenges. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of moving parts, each requiring this incredible level of precision that was really hard to achieve with the tools and the manufacturing techniques of the time.
Yeah, I can only imagine the engineering nightmares.
Yeah.
But wasn't funding a big problem, too?
Oh, absolutely. The British government initially supported the project, but the costs just kept going up. And the project dragged on for much longer than they anticipated, and that led to a lot of skepticism and eventually the withdrawal of their financial backing.
It's like a classic tale of innovation, isn't it?
Right.
You have this revolutionary idea, but actually making it a reality can be a long and expensive journey, especially when you're pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the human element either. Babbage was known to have a very strong personality, and that sometimes led to some conflicts with his collaborators, including his chief engineer, Joseph Clement.
So it was like a perfect storm of challenges. You had the ambitious scope of the project, the limitations of the technology at the time, and then even some good old-fashioned personality clashes.
Right. It's kind of a reminder that even the most brilliant minds need the right resources, the right team, and maybe even a little bit of diplomacy to fully realize their vision. But even though these machines weren't built during his lifetime, Babbage's legacy is undeniable. His work really serves as a bridge between the theoretical and the practical, between the world of ideas and the world of machines.
He was a true visionary, paving the way for a future that he couldn't even fully see himself. And that's what's so inspiring about his story. Even if we don't get to see the immediate impact of our work, our ideas can still ripple through time and influence generations to come.
It really makes you wonder what Babbage engines are being conceived of right now. What seemingly impossible ideas are being explored today that might completely reshape our world in the future.
Yeah, what's flying under the radar right now that we'll look back on in a few decades and say, wow, they were really onto something back then. It's exciting to think about.
It really is. And it highlights how important it is to support those people who are really pushing those boundaries, even if their ideas seem unconventional or maybe ahead of their time.
Because those are often the ideas that lead to the most significant breakthroughs.
Yeah.
So as we kind of delve deeper into Charles Babbage's life, it's becoming more and more clear that he was much more than just a name in a textbook.
Absolutely. He was a visionary, a polymath, a passionate advocate for progress. And his story really speaks to the enduring power of human ingenuity
Yeah.
and the importance of nurturing those sparks of brilliance wherever we find them.
Thinking about Babbage's struggles, it makes you wonder, what can we do today to support those visionaries who are out there pushing the boundaries of what's possible?
That's a great question. I think one of the most important things is to foster a culture of curiosity and open-mindedness to really encourage exploration and experimentation, even if that means embracing some failures along the way.
Yeah, it's about creating an environment where people feel safe to take risks, to
Mhm.
challenge assumptions, and to really dream big. I mean, those are the ingredients that fuel innovation.
Exactly. And we also need to remember that progress often happens gradually. It builds on the work of those who came before us, even if they didn't get to see the full impact of their contributions. Just like Babbage's ideas laid the groundwork for modern computing, the work that's being done today is going to shape the technologies of tomorrow.
So it's about recognizing that we're all part of this larger story of progress, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. And just as Babbage's story continues to inspire us today, the stories of today's innovators will inspire generations to come.
So as we start to wrap up our deep dive into the life and work of Charles Babbage, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? I mean, what should they really walk away with after hearing his story?
I think one of the most important lessons is that innovation often comes from, looking at those problems that already exist and asking, is there a better way to do this? Babbage wasn't satisfied with those limitations of human calculation, so he envisioned these machines that could just do it faster, more accurately, and with a lot more flexibility.
It's like he was driven by this desire to just solve problems.
Exactly, a deep desire to solve practical problems, and that's definitely something we can all learn from.
Yeah, he was really like the ultimate problem solver. Wasn't he always tinkering, always pushing the boundaries of what was
Yeah.
possible?
It's almost like he could see the future of computing, even though he didn't actually have the technology to make it a reality.
And that's what I find so fascinating about his story. It's like a reminder that even if we don't see like the immediate results of all our hard work, our ideas can still have a big impact on the world. Babbage's work might not have been fully appreciated while he was alive, but his legacy continues to live on, in every computer, every smartphone, every piece of technology that uses computation. I think the next time I use my computer, I'll definitely be thinking about Charles Babbage
Hmm.
and the incredible vision that he had.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that something as complex and powerful as a modern computer has its roots in, the gears and levers of his mechanical engines.
It really is. And it's a testament to the power of human ingenuity and, the lasting legacy of those who dare to dream big.
Absolutely.
So as we conclude our deep dive, I want to encourage our listeners to just keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep looking for those aha moments that can spark innovation and ultimately change the world.
That's a great point.
Uh,
I mean, Charles Babbage's story is a great example of how even these seemingly abstract fields like mathematics can have a huge impact on our lives.
yeah,
And who knows, maybe the ideas that are being explored today will seem just as revolutionary to future generations as Babbage's ideas seem to us now.
I think you're right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but I want to thank you for joining us for this incredible deep dive into the life and work of Charles Babbage.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners out there, keep those gears turning and never stop exploring the fascinating world around us. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.